Hey, it's Dr. John back with another edition of the Healthy MD videos here on YouTube and kind of answering your questions. And today, what we're going to talk about are some tips for intermittent fasting and actually cover some of the biggest mistakes that I see with people that are first starting off in intermittent fasting. So, if you're not familiar with what intermittent fasting is supposed to be, it's basically a timed fast followed by a period of eating. So it's not one of these extended fasts that you'll see some people doing that are 2 or 3 days long, and some people even go longer than that. But these are really usually just fasting throughout the day, followed by a refeeding period. So typically one of the most common ones that we call a 16-8. And what that is a 16-hour period of not eating or fasting, followed by 8 hours of an eating window. So for a lot of folks, what they'll do is they'll, do their fasting period overnight, skip breakfast, and then at noon have lunch, and then again have dinner at some time like around 6, 7 o'clock. But make sure they're not having anything to eat after about 8 p.m. And then they'll fast again all through the night, through the next morning, skip breakfast again, and start their feeding window again at noon. So again, that's a 16-hour period of fasting, followed by an 8-hour window. And people can kind of change that up. I know other folks will do what's called OMAD, OMAD, which is that one meal a day. So that ends up being more of like a 22-hour period of fasting, followed by a period where they'll just eat and refeed. So usually it'll go from dinner to dinner or from lunch to lunch. Just kind of figures out. You just have to kind of figure out what fits best into your lifestyle. So if you're working, usually that means that the feeds will come at dinner time. If you have more flexibility, a lot of people refeed like around lunchtime or right after they do a workout. If you're doing fasting workouts, so they kind of get that protein on board to help with protein and muscle synthesis. And then kind of the other types of fasting you'll see is more of what we call 5-2 fasting. And really that talks about 5 days of regular eating and then 2 days of fasting or kind of low calorie. And typically what happens with those 2 days of low calorie is usually about 500, 600 calories, higher in protein. So it's almost like a protein sparing modified fast. You won't do this 2 days in a row. So if you're doing the 5-2 intermittent fasting, usually folks will do that like on a Monday and then followed by a Thursday or a Friday, kind of split it up, and then kind of have normal caloric refeeds or normal calorie intakes on those regular days. And so they'll kind of go through that, see how they do with it. But I think one of the biggest things that I see as far as people having issues with intermittent fasting is that they don't plan ahead. And I think what you really need to do is really kind of plan ahead, say, okay, I'm going to fast from this time to that time of the day. And make sure you have a plan in place. Make sure that you also have a plan for while you're fasting. So see a lot of patients who just say, hey, I'm going to start fasting. They don't really have a plan with it. They feel lousy with it because they're not really prepared for it. And I think one of the biggest tips with fasting is making sure you stay well hydrated and that you have a fair amount of electrolytes. That means making sure that you have sodium, make sure your magnesium's being replaced, especially if you're doing the longer term fasting with that too. And I think the other mistake I also see people make with intermittent fasting is that they either eat too little in the way of calories afterwards or they eat too much in the way of the calories afterwards. And so really having a meal plan as far as what you're going to eat when you break that fast. Because I think we've all done this, like you've gone shopping on an empty stomach and you're throwing everything into the shopping cart and you get home, you're like, why the heck did I buy all this junk food? And so the same thing happens a lot of times if people are breaking that fast. All of a sudden, everything seems like a good idea to eat. Until you actually eat it, you're laying on the couch going, oh my gosh, why did I eat all that? So really kind of meal plan ahead of time. Really know what you're going to have when you break that fast. Get rid of any of the junk food that you may have, any of those snack foods, things like that that may actually kind of knock you out as far as what you're trying to achieve with this intermittent fasting. So hopefully those tips will be something you guys can take and use. Again, appreciate all your comments, all your likes. Hit the subscribe button down below. We're going to be dropping a lot more videos over the next month, 2 months, and going forward. If you have questions, ask them down in the comment. or ask them down in the comment box. And make sure you give us a like too. That's one of the ways that other people find our content and keep on living healthy. So this is Dr. John with the Healthy MD. Thanks.